Hello everyone and welcome to the final round of the Niksic tournament of 1983. We have a very special game for the end. It is Garry Kasparov versus the legendary Serbian Grandmaster Svetozar Gligoric, and the age difference is quite astonishing here. Kasparov is 20, Gligoric is 60 at the time this game was played, and Kasparov doesn't need to even play this game. He already won the tournament, but he does have the white pieces against someone who spent the majority of his life playing chess at the absolute highest level. And not only that, he battled Bobby Fischer numerous times, even scoring 5 victories against Bobby Fischer. Last one was around 1965, so he didn't beat Fischer, for example, when he was, the legend that everyone remembers him for when he started the Palma de Mallorca Interzonal in the candidates matches and, for example, the World Chess Championship match against Boris Spassky. But even, prior to 1965, Fischer was dismantling everyone. So getting 5 wins against Fischer at any point in his life is something that anyone can take home with them. And it's a pretty good event for Gligoric. Not the best. He started with 6 draws, which is not terrible in this competition. Then he lost the game, then 4 more draws, then 2 losses, and now he faces Kasparov, who already won the tournament with the black pieces. So definitely not easy for him. But incredible score against Fischer. 5 wins, 12 losses, and 9 draws. Of course, Kasparov will not squander his chances with the white pieces to, take a win against someone who played against Fischer. And Kasparov being 20 here, Gligoric being 60, definitely not going Gligoric's way. But what are you going to do? That's how life works. So let's check it out. And it's interesting that this game is a masterpiece. I would say this game is a masterpiece, and it coming in the final round with Kasparov not even needing to play the tournament is just wonderful. So let's check it out. Kasparov strikes with pawn to d4. We have knight to f6 by Svetozar, knight to f3, and pawn to b6. Gligoric preparing some sort of an Indian game, still to be seen what kind of. g3, Kasparov also ready to fianchetto his light square bishop. We have bishop to b7, pawn to c4, and pawn to e6. We have a standard Queen's Indian defense. Bishop to g2, bishop to e7, bishop to e7, and knight to c3. We have knight to e4. When the early light square bishop gets fianchettoed, you know that the knight is probably coming to e4. We have bishop to d2 and pawn to d5. This was main theory back then, and it is still main theory nowadays. So c captures on d5, e captures, and here queen to a4 check. Also possible is castles, kingside, queen to c2, and the queen to a4 check. Those are still the top 3 moves being played today. Queen to d7, and now queen back to c2. We have knight captures on d2, and queen captures on d2. You could throw in a nice efficiency with knight to e5, but it's not really all that impressive. Queen e6, now you'll have to capture on d2. And the game continues. There is one game in the database where this was played, but nothing special. So queen captures on d2, and we have castles by both Gligoric and Kasparov. Knight to, that's not a knight. Knight to c6, and interestingly, here at the time it was played, it was a completely new position, but the game was repeated in 2013 in a game between Vasily Ivanchuk and Radoslav Wojtaszek, where Vasil played rook f to d1. Kasparov in this game goes rook a to c1. Interestingly, both are top engine moves, but Chucky lost with rook to d1 against Wojtaszek. So Kasparov goes rook a to c1, and it is as of move 13 that this position has never been repeated again. Okay, we have rook a to d8 and pawn to e3. And here you could play a lot of things. You could play queen to f5. You could even play pawn to g6. You could even play pawn to f6. It's one of the engine top moves, controlling the knight here. But playing a move like f6 and then losing to Kasparov, you can be sure that this game goes into every book for the next 20 years. So you have to be careful when you make a move like that against a player like Kasparov. So bishop to f6. We have rook f to d1, and now knight to a5. And there is a game Gligoric is famous for. I think I named it on my channel "The Dancing Knights of Svetozar Gligoric." And here I found it. I found it funny that this game is all about this knight on a5. So from this point on, always be mindful of the knight on a5. So Kasparov plays pawn to b3. He limits the knight's mobility. Okay, the knight cannot come to c4. We have rook f to e8 and knight to e2. Kasparov wants to bring the knight to f4. We have queen to d6. And okay, knight to f4. Gligoric goes pawn to c6, and we have knight to e5. And the knight to e5 is such a beautiful find by Kasparov. Again, compliments of the knight on a5. And the reason why this is possible is, well, borderline hilarious. Because after bishop captures on e5 and d captures on e5, queen captures on e5, you have pawn to b4. Believe it or not, it wins the game, as it always does. And now the problem is you cannot go to b7, you cannot go to c6. It seems like you can go to c4, but no, rook captures on c4. And now if you capture, of course, you just capture the rook on d8. White is now down too much, black is down too much material. Or if you capture, you just get checkmated because your back rank is weak. So here, I imagine Gligoric burned quite a lot of time trying to work everything out here. Even though bishop captures on e5 is the best move, but after captures and captures, you have to move the queen. You have to go queen to e7. And now the game continues. The knight probably comes to d4, because now if you play b4, the knight can come to c4. Now both the queen and the rook are guarding the rook on d8, and this would even be a problem for white. But Kasparov managed to confuse Svetozar, and Svetozar played pawn to c5, and now Kasparov's position is winning, but only if you find what is so wrong about this position. So have at it while I give you a couple of seconds. I don't think a couple of seconds will cut it, but, you know, take as many as you like. So the problem here, and congratulations to everyone who found it, because you're an amazing player. Knight captures on f7 is nice. You're still better if you go for that. So, you know, if you thought of that, it's very nice. But knight to g4 is the killer idea, and the problem is the weak d5 pawn and the weak knight on a5. To give you an example, if you go c captures on d4, which seems like, you know, it should solve all of your problems, it really doesn't. Knight captures on f6 comes with check, and after queen captures, you're going to play queen captures on d4, and again, not a lot for you to do. For example, queen captures, the d5 pawn is just weak. Even if you trade, let's say captures, there's no saving this pawn. You're just going to capture it, and that's it. The other rook can also come to d1, so you're going to lose that pawn, and then it's basically the backbone of black's position. So yeah, you're not going to be able to hold this. So after knight to g4, Gligoric tried bishop to e7, but again, now Kasparov plays d captures on c5, and you cannot recapture with the pawn, and you cannot recapture with the queen, as the knight on a5 is weak. So even that is a part of the combination. So Gligoric played queen to d7, and now Kasparov throws in a knight e5, attacks the queen. We have queen to c7, now attacks the knight, and now again c captures on b6, winning a pawn, as the knight on a5 is now hanging, so you can't just trade. Even though you can, but you don't, I mean, you just admit that, okay, you messed up. So Gligoric has to look for something. He plays queen captures on b6, and now knight captures on d5, forking the queen and the bishop on e7, and yes, you can capture on d5. That's not an issue. But if you play bishop captures on d5, look at this. Pawn captures, you're threatening to capture on f7. Let's say rook f8, you move the queen, queen c2, and not a lot for black here. For example, bishop to f6 is going to be met with the simple bishop captures on f7. And now look at this. Rook captures, and now rook captures on d8 check. Queen captures, knight captures on f7, king captures, and now again pawn to b4, just winning the game, as the knight has no squares. Yes, you can go to b7, but then queen c7 check picks up the knight. Or you trade, and then rook captures, again picks up the knight. And of course, you're up 3 pawns. You have a rook versus a bishop. This is dead lost for Gligoric. So he tries bishop to a3. He attacks the rook and sort of leaves his queen hanging, but not really, as you're going to capture the queen on d2 as well. And Kasparov happily trades. Knight captures on b6, and the rook captures on d2. But it's still not, you know, this is still a huge mess of a position. What do you play here? You have to play the absolute best move. Otherwise, you might not be able to grab a full point. So have at it while I give you a couple of seconds. There are two ways to go about this position. One is to go for rook captures on d2, which is suboptimal, but we can't show it because it's just a huge capture fest. Captures on d2, captures on c1. You're gonna go rook c2, attack the bishop. Then, the knight is hanging as well, so you can grab a pawn while you're at it. Bishop captures on e3, but now bishop captures on b7, and after knight captures on b7, you can either trade or you can move the knight. So knight b to d7, and now if you don't want to lose the bishop, bishop d4. But now you go knight f3, attack the bishop, and not a lot of good squares for this bishop. For example, rook a1, rook c1, bishop b2, rook to c2, or even you don't even have to attack it. You can go rook c7, go after the knight. Even better, the knight has to move, and then you pick up another pawn. You have two connected passed pawns, and you're completely winning. But you still have to play. Of course, everyone knows Kasparov will win this, but yeah, maybe there's a faster way. So the faster way is knight b to c4, and this is what Kasparov played, not allowing Gligoric any chances. Forking the rook, the bishop, and the knight always sounds funny when you say forking the knight, but you know it is what it is. So knight captures on c4, knight captures, and now just bishop. Knight captures on c4, and now bishop captures on g2. You could also capture, for example, rook captures on d1. It's also perfectly fine. Rook captures, and then bishop captures on g2 captures, and okay, the bishop is saying something like bishop to c5, but black has nothing to work with here. So you're down 2 pawns, and that's pretty much it. So Gligoric has to look for his chances. Otherwise, it's better to just resign than to play that position against Kasparov. So he decides to give up an exchange. Plays bishop captures on g2. Okay, Kasparov captures the rook. We have bishop to h3 and rook to c4. So now Gligoric is down the exchange, but he does have the bishop pair with the bishop sort of controlling the white king. Maybe he can do something here. Okay, we have pawn to a5 and rook to e4. Kasparov offers a rook trade. You could also go for rook to a4. This is also perfectly fine. Rook to e4 and now rook to a8. We have knight to c4 attacking the bishop and the pawn here. Bishop to f8. We have rook to d5. Kasparov just showing off his rooks, as the bishop pair so far isn't proving to be all that useful. g6 and rook captures on a5, winning more material. Rook to c8. Gligoric cannot afford to trade rooks. We have pawn to f3, clearing the f2 square for the king, so you don't get, maybe checkmated in the future. Pawn to h5, and now rook to d4. Gligoric played bishop to g7, attacks the rook, rook to d3, and now bishop to e6, sort of fully activating his bishops, maybe even preparing a bishop captures on c4. But Kasparov just said, I'm not interested in that. Rook d5. You can have your exchange back. I mean, I'm up 3 pawns. I don't need your rook. So have at it. If you want to continue playing this, I mean, you can. But Gligoric did not. So it was in this position on move 37 that Svetozar Gligoric resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You could capture, but then, okay, you're just down 3 pawns, and of course, you're not beating Kasparov or drawing when you're down 3 pawns. So yeah, beautifully played by Kasparov. He completely obliterated Svetozar here. Even though he, like I said, he could have missed the entire round, he would still win the tournament. But when you face a legend like Gligoric, it doesn't matter if it's 20, 40, or 60. You're playing against someone who spent his entire life fighting the likes of Bobby Fischer. You're bringing your A game, and an A game is definitely what Kasparov brought to this great day. And finally, here are the standings of the Niksic tournament of 1983. So let's check them out. Kasparov wins with a staggering 11 out of 14, 9 wins. That one loss to Boris Spassky. If you haven't seen it, do check it out. I mean, it's really a beautiful fighting game with four draws. Bent Larsen also having an incredible event, 9 out of 14 with 6 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses and 6 draws. Boris Spassky and Laos Portish with 8 out of 14. Tony Miles, Ulf Andersson, 7.5. Mikhail Tal and Jan Timan with 7. 6.5 for Yasser Serevan and Ljubomir Ljubojevic. 6 for Svetozar Gligoric and Tigran Petrosyan. Predrag Nikolic, 5.5. Gyula Saks, 5. And Božidar Ivanovic with 4.5. Also had a very nice game against Kasparov, even though he lost. So yeah, that is the short story of the Niksic tournament of 1983. Kasparov was obviously pretty unfazed by the fact that he's facing the great Anatoly Karpov next year in a World Chess Championship match. He came here challenged himself, facing not one, not two, not three, but four world champions, winning clear first 2 full points ahead of the lead, ahead of the pack, and just showing that he is ready for Anatoly Karpov, and he will show what he can do in 1984. And of course, you guys, with your incredible vast knowledge, of course, you know what happened then. But yeah, I have seen some suggestions. You guys suggested some other games from this tournament. I will also, comb through them and see if, I can find some beauties, and we might check out them as well. If not, we're continuing something else. And yes, I will return with the sagas. The Steinitz saga is coming most likely in less than a month, but I will keep you. We'll keep you guys informed. So yeah, really hope you enjoyed it. If you still haven't tried out Lotus Chess, do try it out. It's really an amazing app that teaches you fighting chess, that really gives you the tools you need to beat your opponents. I'm really loving it. It's the first app I've ever tried that I really like. First link in the description below. Do try it out and tell me what you think about it. I know you'll love it, but still, if you don't, tell me either way. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Peter Alber, Rajesh Kota, Phil Bawa, Fisher Exteriors, and Tafadza Nuwaru for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.